Okay, we're in session.
Okay, good evening, folks. My name is John Chory. I am chair of the Harwich Finance Committee. We have a meeting scheduled tonight, March 8th at 6:30 p.m. in the small conference room in the town hall. And I'm going to read as required by open town meeting law. You are hereby informed that the town may be...
John, sorry, you're very muffled. This is Karen.
How's this? Does this sound a little better now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. As required by open meeting law, you are hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to videotape or audio tape this meeting must notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting. I'd like to do a call to order. I'll call people by name and to say you're present. Brian Weiner.
Present.
Mark Keller.
Present.
Stan Torek.
Present.
Dale Kennedy.
Present.
Angelo Lamont. Mark Amherst. And we have a caller on the line, Karen Doucette from Florida.
Yeah.
And
Present, and you're still muffled. Sorry.
okay, I guess I got to speak closer. How's that?
I think it's the mic.
Okay. Well, I'm going to continue on. We're working on it. Hopefully,
this
folks can hear me okay. I mean, both of them are lit. How's that? Is that one any better? Karen?
It's not great. Go ahead. Keep going. Just go.
Okay. So we call to order. We have a quorum here of 7 people in the room, and Karen's on the line, which constitutes she can participate in the meeting and continue, but we do have a quorum present. Public comments from anyone in the audience or on the line? If anyone has a public comment, please let me know. No one does. Okay, moving on to announcements. I'd like to make an announcement that Tom Sherry, a member of the Finance Committee, has submitted his resignation from the Finance Committee. Tom has been a member of the Finance Committee since 2018. And I want to thank Tom for his years of service to the Finance Committee and to the citizens and to the town of Harwich. Thank you, Tom. Moving on to new business. The first one, item A, is an overview of CPC articles. And we have 2 guests tonight, Mike Locke from Harwich Conservation Trust and Elaine Shovlin from Open Space and Real Estate.
Can you project towards the laptop, because the people on the GoToMeeting are listening over there, not the microphones at the desk.
Can I move the laptop here, or?
That'll change the picture, but
Oh, but we're still being recorded, though, with the
it's being
cameras?
recorded over there.
Okay. That might be a little better. Okay. Oh, jeepers, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give an overview of CPC, what CPC means for folks in the audience. Maybe new members of the committee might not fully understand what they are. What it is, it's really the CPA. It's the Conservation Preservation Act. Community Preservation Act, sorry, thank you. That was created in year 2000 by the state legislative division to encourage the towns to contribute 3% of their property tax bill to a fund. It's called the Community Preservation Trust, and of which they would match initially dollar for dollar in the beginning. And they did for about 3 or 4 years, but then the match slipped off to various amounts over the years. And I think looking at the revenues, the last one was at 33%. But regardless, since the town joined in 2005, the town has raised almost $20 million. $19,685,000 they've raised towards CPC projects, and the town has contributed $8.6 million to the trust, or to the CPC funds. So for a total of $28 million that the town had to spend on various projects, and I'll get into what those projects are. But the money, the 3%, again, comes from the property tax assessment on your bill. You see it in the upper right-hand corner of your tax bill every year. It's 3% of whatever your property tax bill is. and the state contributes from the CPC Trust Fund. And they derive the trust fund money from real estate transfers when you buy or sell a house, that they tack on $50, and that goes to this real estate conservation trust fund, and also from certificates of lien certificates of $25. And then in 2012, the state also derived another funding source for this trust, and it was from surplus money from the state budget, and each year that varies. So that's where the money comes from. Where it goes, it really goes into 5 buckets, if you want to call it that. And I'll explain what the 5 buckets are. I've heard 3 buckets, I've heard 4 buckets, but it's about 5 buckets, I surmised. And it can be spent on open space, which is what Mr. Locke and Elaine Shovlin is here for tonight. I would have a tough time with that last name. Historical purposes, affordable housing. And then there's a 4th fund called undesignated funds. And in this fund, which makes up 70%, roughly 70% of the revenues that they can spend on towards those other 3 projects of open space, historical, affordable housing, and recreation. And then the 5th bucket is it's called Cpc Administration Funds, and they're allowed 5% every year to build up a reserve for administration purposes. I know paying consultants, paying for help, and we'll see that in the articles. There's a couple articles that are seeking administrative funds along with undesignated funds. And there's 10 items this year on the CPC list that have all been approved by the Cpc committee. They meet throughout the year. I believe they start in October, or maybe that's the deadline for applications is October, and they deliberate for 3-4 months on that. They vet the application, met the source, meet with people, and then they vote on them and put forth the CPC articles, which will show up on the town warrant. As part of the responsibility of the Finance Committee is that we're supposed to review every warrant that's on the town warrant, whether it has a financial impact or doesn't have a financial impact. And that's why what CPC is before us tonight, for us to understand their request so that we have to provide a written recommendation to the selectmen and eventually to the town. When you add up all 10 of those funds that they're asking for money for, it equates to about $2.3 million of funds coming out of those various fund buckets. And I spoke with Mr. Nixon, and there's adequate revenues to fund all the projects. And when we get into those specific projects, I'll tell you where they come from which account, because some of them are coming in at next year's fund level. But I'll explain that. So if anyone have any questions on CPC and where they get their revenues, how their revenues are spoken, anyone on the phone, on the call-ins have a question on CPC? Just overall question on CPC funds or the CPA Act? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to invite Elaine Shovlin to come up and Mike Locke. They're going to speak to us on 2 articles that was put before the CPC committee. One of them, the largest one, and the information is in the Finance Committee packet of information for folks listening at home as to what these 2 are. The first one I'm going to have, well, they're both interlinked. Michael's representing the trust and Elaine representing real estate and open space. I'll let Elaine start, or Michael figure out how to separate the 2. I guess the big question is Elaine's article is 950,000 total, but the application mentions 600, and then a relationship with the trust on how that's being funded from the trust and CPC and how it's all funded to get to the 950.
Thank you all. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to explain this article to you. As chair of the Real Estate and Open Space, I could say our entire committee is fully supportive of this.
Yes.
And we joined in partnership with Harwich Conservation Trust to bring this about. And we've gotten the support from several committees in town. As you know, we had Board of Selectmen, Conservation, Water Department, everybody that, bikeways, everybody that's involved with conservation and land and protecting that land. We're talking about 75 and a half acres of property in the Six Ponds Special District of Critical Planning. Property surrounds parcels that are already owned by the town and are under the custody of the Conservation Commission. There was potentially a plan for a development for 18 units on that property, which would really be detrimental not only to the water and the whole area as far as hiking and wildlife preservation, and the wellhead recharge area is there, and as you know, that water all comes down and eventually winds up down in Sequatucket Harbor, and we're just trying to save that. It also helps with balancing off the wastewater areas that need to be sewered, and all this goes, helps with that. It supports a lot of the goals that the town of Harwich has as far as, its regional policy regarding resource protection, wetland resource protection, wildlife and plant habitat, open space protection. It also would help preserve that entire area from, and we're talking about areas, from on Spruce Road. You may all be familiar with where Spruce Road is.
This is in the Hawkness area of
Yes,
Harwich.
so you turn off 137 onto
Yeah.
Spruce Road. The northern part of the boundary of this property is Route 6. So it goes from where Spruce Road ends right now, below Route 6, all the way down to Queen Anne Road. You can access it through JZ Drive, up through the old sand pit and that area, and it goes all the way west, almost to Aunt Edie's Pond. Yeah, so that's a big continuous area of property between that, the Hawk's Nest, and the other properties the town already has under conservation and properties that are town-owned. That's the biggest parcel of land available in the Lower Cape to be preserved right now. And I don't think anybody wants to see a development going in there of homes that will not be affordable, for
Yes.
sure.
Mhm.
We were very glad to join in our partnership with HCT. And maybe, Mike, you can explain the financial better than
Sure.
Yeah, better at finance.
Thanks, Elaine.
Caller 2, would you mute yourself, please?
Marie, can you mute your phone, please?
Marie
you.
Zan?
She's muted.
Oh, okay, and caller number 2?
Caller 2, can you mute your phone, please?
We can mute them.
We can, okay.
So we're not sure who caller 2 is, but I want to mute you.
Great. Thank you. Mark.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Now we don't know, like, if they say something, we'll never hear it. And they don't know how to unmute themselves. So.
Well,
So caller 2, if you need to say something, call back in again.
or unmute yourself.
They don't know how to do it.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mike, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Finance Committee, for an opportunity to explain and seek your positive recommendation for a warrant article regarding this $950,000 application by the town's Real Estate and Open Space Committee towards the preservation of this significant tract of land, which Elaine mentioned is in the Six Pond Special District, an area circa 2000 that was designated by the Barnstable County Cape Cod Commission and the local planning board here and town meeting voters themselves as a critical area to protect. The town, over the years since, the past couple of decades, has been acquiring lands for conservation to protect water quality and wildlife habitat and connected walking trails west of and adjacent to Hawks Nest State Park. And this tract that Elaine describes creates a westerly anchor to that combination of town and state-owned conservation lands. And if town meeting voters approve this article for $950,000 towards the larger purchase price for the property of $2.75 million, then it'll create a larger 400-acre assemblage, quite significant and rare for Harwich or anywhere on the Cape. So Harwich Conservation Trust role in this partnership, and I serve as the executive director. Just by way of background for your meeting participants, the trust, shorthand HCT, Harwich Conservation Trust, was founded in 1988 by volunteers from all walks of life coming together for a common purpose of preserving natural land to protect water quality and scenic views and walking trails, wildlife habitat, all of those environmental elements that make this special corner of the Cape so popular for those that live here and those that like to visit. This potential land acquisition would add to that shared quality of life. You mentioned, Mr. Chairman, that the initial application by the Town Real Estate and Open Space Committee to the Community Preservation Committee was for $600,000. It was supplemented by an additional ask of the Community Preservation Committee by the Real Estate and Open Space Committee, then endorsed by the Select Board for an additional $350,000 for a total Community Preservation Act funding ask of $950,000. Community Preservation Committee unanimously supported the Real Estate and Open Space Committee's application. The role of Harwich Conservation Trust is to raise the difference between the purchase price of the land, which is $2.75 million, and if town meeting voters see fit to approve $950,000 in Community Preservation Act funds, raise the difference between those two figures.
What does the transfer of the money do, Michael? Does it give you control of the land? Is it a commitment for a fixed period of time not to be sold to anyone else? What exactly does the $950 accomplish?
I'll answer the commitment piece relative to the fact that Harwich Conservation Trust has a signed purchase and sale agreement with the landowner, and for a closing date of June 2023. So should town meeting voters approve this $950,000 Community Preservation Act warrant article, that will give us time to transfer funds to purchase of the land. In exchange, what is the real estate interest that the town acquires? The town would be acquiring a permanent conservation restriction over the property. It's a belt and suspenders approach to conservation long-term. This is a collaboration, a model that the town of Harwich and Harwich Conservation Trust have employed several times on key acquisitions across the town, especially over the past several years. And we think it can be successful here, pending, of course, a positive vote by the town meeting voters.
And so you've got quite a task ahead of you, of almost $1.1 million or $1.5 million of revenue to raise. And did I hear or an understanding at some point that the conservation CPC will be paid back some money if something happens, or was that just something I heard?
You know, good question, and just a point of clarification, because it speaks to the differential that Harwich Conservation Trust has a responsibility to raise. It's actually even higher because Harwich Conservation Trust is also working on another project in the area, separate from this town meeting warrant article. So Harwich Conservation Trust campaign goal is actually $3 million when you include that other parcel plus all of our due diligence and project costs. So the $950,000, as I mentioned, is solely focused on this $2.75 million purchase.
Right.
The other part of your question?
Is the CPC going to be paid back
Yes.
something if you're successful in
Okay.
doing, I just heard something to that effect.
Yeah, so what that pertains to is the town's application for a state land acquisition for natural diversity or land grant with a maximum reimbursement of $400,000 back to the town. It's a competitive process. We think this property is a standout in terms of its water quality protection, habitat, walking trail, connectivity. But you never know.
Yeah.
So there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
But important to acknowledge that should the town be selected for the land grant, the state would reimburse the town, not the trust, the town, $400,000. So you reduce the $950,000 outlay by $400,000. The net cost, if the town is successful with the grant, would be $550,000 in Community Preservation Act funds.
And that 400 would go to back to CPC?
Back to CPC,
Okay.
the Open Space Fund in
Good,
particular.
okay.
So I have one additional question, just to round the conversation out and to be pedantic, although I already know your track record. If you were unsuccessful in raising the additional revenues needed by the deadline date, is there a forfeiture of the $950,000?
Yes, the town meeting voters would have the option of rescinding at a future vote.
But it wouldn't be forfeited to the seller?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on the board have any?
Quick
any-
question, what would be the source of the additional 1.5 million?
That's up to Harwich Conservation Trust to raise. So we'd be looking at all sources, including additional state sources, donations at all levels, foundations, business contributions, and we have until December 31st of this year. If town meeting voters saw fit to favorably support this article, it would go a long way towards communicating to the wider community that this is a project to support.
Dan?
It might be worth noting that once the CPC approves an application, it must go to town meeting.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, all CPC articles, yeah, must go to town meeting, correct. Any other
Yeah, I have one
questions?
other question.
Yeah, sure.
Just out of curiosity, on your map of the project, I thought of it when I looked at it the last time. There's an open space that exists between the 85-acre Great Woods block, and then there's a smaller block by Auntie Dee's Pond. That white block, is that still privately held and potentially developed?
It is vacant land, natural land, not part of this project scope at the time.
But theoretically, the owner does have the potential, if they so chose, to try and develop it, although access, looking at the map, would be challenging, but.
It is not the same owner as the seller of the project that's the subject of the Warren article.
Thank you.
Is there anyone online that would like to speak? Unmute yourself and let me known, and you can ask. Okay. Sensing no one, as I mentioned in my opening statement about CPC, I just want to read their application, because as I mentioned, those 5 or 4 buckets, it clearly spells out here where that money from each fund is coming from. I move we approve $950,000 from open space account and undesignated fund account, consisting of $604,486 from the open space account, FY21 open space account, $210,000 from the FY23 open space fund anticipated revenues, and $135,514 from the FY23 undesignated fund anticipated revenues to fund the town of Harwich Real Estate and Open Space Committee's application to purchase a conservation restriction of the Spruce Woods project. And they also have a second article that's tied into this article. And this article is for $12,500 from administrative funds. That's one of the 5th buckets of the CPC to fund the appraisal costs, grant writing for the town of Harwich relative to the purchase of the conservation restriction pursuant to the town of Harwich Real Estate and Open Space Communities application. Michael, I think it's a very good project. Elaine, a very good
It
project.
really is.
And we will be voting not tonight on CPC articles. Tonight was intent, I wanted to speed up the process a bit and get some folks in here, because we only got like 3 weeks to make a lot of decisions. So I really appreciate you coming in and speaking to us, and probably going to start voting on CPC articles next week. I will definitely let you know. I don't anticipate any objections, but we never know. So, but I'll let you know. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I'd just like to say thank you for your time. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on, as
Well,
we all do.
we all do.
We all do. But, and the fact that members of our committee, and I think some of the other committees that supported this, we have all said that we are willing to go out there and support this publicly. I don't know, you may have seen that even the Cape Cod Chronicle editorial supported this project.
Okay.
So there is a lot of support for it out there in the community and nearby communities, because it's not just a Harwich benefit, it's also a regional benefit.
Sure.
Because people from Brewster, Orleans, and Chatham, they're all going to walk these trails too and enjoy this property.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they know about it, they'll know it's there. And if it is, they will come and use it too. So it's a great benefit to the whole area.
No, I think it is, and that whole Hawks Nest area is kind of unknown. I mean, you really have to search it out to find it's there.
Well,
And,
you know, years ago, when I first moved into the area, and I am within walking distance of Hawks Nest, a block
Okay.
away, it was like, shh, don't let anybody know the pond is back there. It's like our secret pond,
Yeah,
you
'cause
know?
there's-
But it's great that people are using it.
because there's really no signage out there, really. I mean, there's no big signs, there's no parking lots really either and stuff. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, no, it's a great thing. So with that, I thank you again,
And
Elaine.
if any other further questions or things come up, feel free to contact. I'd be glad to answer anything,
Okay.
help in any way I can.
Great. Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you
Thank you
again
all.
for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Michael, don't go away
Wait
yet.
to Just move back.
I've asked Michael, who again is Executive Director of the Harwich Conservation Trust. He has another project request in from CPC for, let me find it here. It's, I'll read the article and I'll briefly, I move to approve, or the CPC, $75,000, again, from one of the buckets. This one's the undesignated fund account, consisting of $75,000 for the FY21 certified undesignated fund account to fund Phase 2 of the Natural Heritage Trail Boardwalk project. And with that, I'll let Michael explain what Phase 2 is, but maybe you can tie it into Phase 1 and even briefly tie it into the Colbrook restoration so people can see the serial linkage to all these projects that you're doing for Colbrook
Yes.
restoration. Okay.
Thank you. I'll start there with the larger
Yeah.
Colbrook Ecological Restoration Project. In 2017, town meeting voters authorized up to $2 million toward the Colbrook Ecological Restoration Project, because one of the benefits, in addition to naturalizing the wetland area, a series of retired bogs, and naturalizing the stream channel to enhance fish passage and wildlife habitat diversity and enhance visitor experience, one of the benefits to the town is to naturally reduce the amount of nitrogen that's flowing through the wetland on its way to Saquatucket Harbor. And one of within the town's comprehensive wastewater management plan, there is a reference to a savings of up to $6 million potentially in saved taxpayer dollars because of the reduction in the need for sewering in that watershed by virtue of this ecological restoration project. As I mentioned, one of the goals of the ecological restoration project is actually also to enhance the visitor experience. This property, the 66-acre Robert F. Colbrook Preserve, is in the heart of Harwich Port. It's like an oasis in Harwich Port, bordered on Bank Street, Gorham Road to the east, Hoyt Road to the south, Gorham Road also to the north. And it's named after Robert F. Smith, one of the Trust's founding trustees, and also president for the first 27 years. Not long after he passed, the Board of Trustees saw fit to name the property in his honor. which gets to the first phase of the Harwich Natural Heritage Trail project. First phase, which was approved by town meeting voters at last May's town meeting, was an authorization for $150,000 toward the design, permitting, and construction of a wheelchair-accessible half-mile trail loop configured to Americans with Disability Act standards that could be accessible right from the parking area. Preferred parking area is at 203 Bank Street. We have an alternative parking area option if the preferred parking doesn't work out. To provide an amenity for people of all physical abilities, all ages, to get out in nature, enjoy the walking experience, and again, have that wheelchair accessible option. Phase 2 is the subject of this proposed warrant article for this coming town meeting, and that is a request of $75,000 from the Community Preservation Fund toward an area in the easterly portion of the preserve to create a roughly 100-foot boardwalk connector that will maintain the linkage in a trail loop, as well as bridge part of an earthen berm that will be removed in order to allow wetland habitat connectivity and free flow of Colbrook, and then allow folks to cross back and forth and enjoy the views north and south and almost have an immersive experience, 360-degree views of the preserve around them. And that's the summary of the project in a nutshell. I should get to the financing aspect. $75,000 is part of the overall project cost, which is estimated to be at $175,000. Where will the other $100,000 come from? $50,000 has already been approved for a federal grant for the overall project, $50,000 towards this boardwalk portion. We're also raising another $50,000 through additional grants and fundraising donations. So $75,000 from the Community Preservation Fund would be a leveraging aspect to attract additional funding and make this phase 2 possible. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Okay. And I must say that it was over unanimously approved too by the CPC of 7-0 the vote, and I'm sure you get lots of recommendations and stuff throughout. And I must commend the Harwich Trust. They're very good at raising money.
Oh, yeah.
For such a small entity, it's tremendous. The donors you have. And it's nice to see that you're putting money into it yourself and not totally relying on the town to fund your operations. So, with that, any questions, Ann?
Do the boardwalk plans include any kind of a kiosk or a message board to provide a history to why lands are named after Mr. Smith and that kind of thing?
It's a great question, Dan. We are planning to create interpretive signage at different locations throughout the preserve. Location at the boardwalk would be a natural place. We're contemplating anywhere from between 4 and 6 locations for interpretive signage, some kind of signboard. There would also be what's envisioned as a wheelchair accessible informational kiosk, so somebody in a wheelchair could see all the way around a kiosk with information at the actual trailhead parking area. So that will be another resource for visitors to consider.
I'll just mention that some of the projects that have been funded by the CPC, like for instance, the Brooks Library, the exterior painting, they put a sign up to indicate that the funding was provided for this by the Community Preservation Committee.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a long way.
It's a really important acknowledgement of community support.
Any other questions? Mark?
Yeah, is the parking where the old fire station is?
That would be preferred parking option 1. If that does not materialize, then option 2 would be further south along Bank Street.
Because I know the town's looking at disposing of that. Is your area away from where the town may dispose of that property, or that they dispose of it, that would preclude your parking?
The Harwich Conservation Trust is collaborating with the nonprofit Harwich Fire Association together we've expressed interest in acquiring that parcel at such time as, or I should say, submitting a proposal for acquisition of the property at such time as the select board circulates their request for proposals from the community. One of the important elements of that site would be to enhance the parking area and make that the trailhead, which it already is by permission of the select board at will. But if the trust and the Harwich Fire Association were be able to be co-owners of that land, then the parking area could be enhanced for wheelchair accessibility.
Any other questions on here? Karen, do you have any questions of Michael online or anyone else online?
No, John, all set.
Okay, thanks, Karen. I do have to ask Michael, what phase are we in on the Colbrook restoration? And it was talked about last night in the selectmen's meeting. They approved the CWM Smith piece of final design, I believe. But I'll let you speak.
Sure, thanks for asking that question. So John's asking, in what stage are we at in the planning, permitting, construction three-phase process? We're at the final 25% design phase, which we hope to wrap up by this June. Simultaneously, we're starting the permitting phase through Mass Environmental Policy Act, then moving on to the Local Conservation Commission and the State's Department of Environmental Protection with the latter half of 2022. Hopefully, construction, pending permits, would begin late 2022, early 2023.
Thank you, Mike. I mean, it's been a long process.
Yes.
We've
A complicated project, but with wonderful benefits on the horizon.
Tremendous, yeah. There's no other questions. Thank you, Michael, for coming in. And again, we're not going to vote on it tonight, but I will let you know one way or the other. I would think it would be a very favorable vote, but I'll let you know.
Thanks for your consideration. If you have any other questions, I'm glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, moving on. I'd like to run through the other projects. I'll give a brief overview of the project. Just one, to see if anyone on the board has a desire to bring in anyone else for further discussion. I'm happy to do that. And to that point, next Tuesday, the 15th, Eric Beebe, who is the Recreation Director, I've scheduled him to come in and speak to us on his application from CPC, which is expansion of the pickleball courts and basketball courts out at Brooks Park, which has been fully supported by CPC and the selectmen. But I'd like for him to come in and explain the project to the board and to the townspeople. The other one I've asked to come in is Robin Kelly, who's our cemetery director. And she has an application before us for I should say the pickleball first, excuse me, I'll back up for them, is $245,000 they're asking for those courts and basketball courts. And I'll let Eric explain the numbers behind that, people involved in the numbers. And Robin's project is $118,000. This is for the restoration of some gravestones. If you remember from last year's discussions, it didn't get approved for some reason. I forget what the reason. I don't know if it was an ownership issue and stuff, but that's all been cleared. And these projects have all been vetted by legal, so they've all been approved that way. She's asking for $118,000 for the gravestone restoration. I've asked her to come in. And we can also speak to Eric and Robin about their budgets, but I'll cover that a little bit later on, too, in our discussion. So just moving down the list, if anyone has a question, then I can invite them in. The first one on the list is I think this is the last piece in our land bank debt, and that's for $220,000. Is that correct, Dan, as far as you know?
I know we were getting close to
Yeah.
paying it off.
Yeah,
So,
I think this is the last piece of that.
yeah.
The second one is $60,000 from certified undesignated fund accounts to fund community preservation's administrative services, expenses. That has to come before town meeting also. It's the running and care of the CPC fund. The consultants they have to hire, the fees they have to pay and stuff.
$60,000?
$60,000, yeah.
I don't remember that when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, I can ask for more clarification, or I can
Yeah, I'd
have,
like to hear,
or have Dave Nixon come in or his designee, okay? Yeah, I'll read the full article, since you've asked. They're looking for $60,000 from the undesignated fund account, consisting of $60,000 from the FY 2021 certified undesignated fund account to fund the Community Preservation's Committee's administrative expenses. And if you give me 1 second, I can tell you exactly what administrative expenses involve, just so that I'm clear, but I'm sure CPC would be happy to come in and explain it to us. CPC Administration Funds. In order to fund the work of the CPC, the CPA, Community Preservation Act, stature specifies that the committee may use up to 5% of the community's annual CPA revenues each year. However, the CPC must request these funds from the local legislative body, the town meeting, each year in specific dollar amounts. The CPC's administrative funds can be used for the same kinds of funds expenses budgeted by any town department or committee to carry out its mission each year, such as employee salaries, office expenses, and contractual services. So that's what the $60,000, that's what they can spend it on.
my recollection is that the only administrative expenses we had was for the secretary.
Okay, well, I can speak to Mr. Nixon and find out that answer,
Yeah.
if you'd like.
That'd be fine.
Yep, okay, no problem. Next one down is Robin's account of 118. She's coming in. This one I'll read it, but and I'll put a caveat to it. I move that when I say I mean the CPC. We approve $50,000 from Community Housing Fund account, consisting of $50,000 from FY 2021 Certified Community Housing Fund account to fund the town's of Harwich's part-time housing position. In the past, they've asked for this $50,000 for a part-time position. I believe it's for multiple towns, Chatham, Orleans, and Brewster, I think, is it? And it works on Harwich conservation housing accounts. Also in this year's budget, and it's in the town administrator's budget, is for a new position that he's advocating for. It's called the housing advocate. It's a full-time position, salaried and benefits. But we can ask Joe on Thursday night at our meeting. He's scheduled to speak to this particular item of the housing. I mean, his department's funds, and that's where that's in there. Because, and I don't know what the mechanism, it's refunding in two places at one time, but we can find that out Thursday night. So that's what that $50,000 is there. Next one is basically $500,000 from community housing account to fund for community housing to go into the Harwich Conservation Trust for projects that they so desire. I think that's almost an annual expense. I'm not sure.
It is, yeah.
Okay, the next one was Michael's project. The next project here is a pretty interesting one that they did approve, and all these they've approved 7-0 except the $500,000 one. That was approved 5-2 by the CPC. This next one is for a company called Penrose LLC / Cape Cod 5 Housing Project. This is for a regional approach to affordable housing for the town of Orleans. The town of Orleans has gone to a multiple number of towns, asking each town for money to help fund their project of affordable housing. It's a novel approach. I think this is the first time that it's been addressed, affordable housing has been addressed on a regional basis. It was fully approved by the CPC. And I did talk to a gentleman at Pembroke's Development, a gentleman named Rio Sakuchi, that Orleans has committed $2 million to this project. Eastham has committed $100,000. Chatham is voting in this year's town meeting of $100,000. Brewster is voting in their town meeting in May 16th for $100,000. But Wellfleet was asked for $100,000, but they do not have enough funds in their accounts to pay for anything towards this year. Truro is asking this year for $100,000 in April. Provincetown has already funded $20,000, and Harwich is being asked for $100,000 at the May 2nd meeting. So it's a regional approach to a Cape-wide problem of affordable housing. That's what this is. They're more than willing to come in via conference call if we need more information on the project. You folks want me to ask them to come in, or it's?
I'd like to know more about it.
Sure. Okay. I can ask them to come in, but it's basically a regional approach. I think, and don't hold me to it, but I think the total cost of the project is like $21 million, and it's a very expensive project. But and some talk is, what's the benefit for Harwich out of this, other than committing as a partnership with other towns? Harwich does not get any credit towards their 10% of affordable housing. You know how each town is mandated to have 10% of affordable housing?
We do not.
You don't get any credit towards that 10%, even though we're contributing $100,000. And nothing would preclude Harwich, when they have a major project, to ask. And I think that's what's going to happen. But anyway, the next caveat is who gets the affordable housing? Is it open to all the contributing towns, or is there going to be some type of lottery system? And what I've been understanding, this is where having them come in could clarify that point, Dale, is my understanding is that Orleans would get the first call at a lottery system for the apartments. If it wasn't filled then the second round would go out for requests for housing, and Harwich at that point would be able to apply, residents of Harwich would be able to apply for an apartment or down in Orleans. But so yes, I think it's probably a good idea to have them clear those points. And he was more than helpful. They're based up in Boston. He's based in Andover, but we can easily accomplish a video call on him. So I will do that. Next project is Mike's Lock project. Pickleball we've talked about. And that's it as far as the projects are there. It's a small list this year of 10 projects, but it totals $2.3 million of requests. And these funds have all been accounted for via CPC Commission, and they've all been vetted by legal, so we can approve them or disapprove them based on what we feel as a board. So that's it on CPC funds. I will ask those two folks to come in and clarify, Dave Nixon or his designee from CPC, to come and explain your request, Dan, of $60,000, just to know what it's being spent on, and then Rio Saguchi from Pembroke's projects, and then next week's like the March 15th meeting, I'll put in on our agenda, discuss and vote, because I'd like to start voting on some of these things and knock them down. So that's that. That's on the agenda for CPC. If anyone else on the phone, Karen, you have any questions? Or anyone else on the line?
Nope, John, I'm all set again.
Okay. How's the voice, Karen? Is it pretty good, or?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Other
little
than
muddy,
my
but it's-
fault.
Yeah, okay. Angela, you?
Just a question which I don't understand. The money to increase pickleball
Yep.
and whatnot, that's fine. I think it's a wonderful thing to do.
Basketball too, don't forget
And
basketball.
basketball.
It's very important,
You got a bill.
very important.
I got one.
Talk louder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Over there. To
Okay.
that laptop.
Anyway, because if we're doing that, that means we're impacting that building down there, doing something with it. Somebody's got to make a plan for that building. You can't have this group charging down there, building pickle courts in it, and then they decide that what's going to be used for is a cultural center.
Oh,
I mean,
cultural
as
center.
far as I'm concerned, turn it to do all pickleballs. I have no problem with that at all. And close the rest of the building, and we're done.
I can't answer that, that's,
But it's
I know what you're talking about, Angela, yeah.
two things at the same time. We've got to get out of that and decide what the hell we're doing.
And that's, maybe, when, in my note to the town administrator and the selectmen on department head meetings, which we'll discuss as part of the budget coming up next, is I asked for some discussion on two questions that we needed more information. One is the revolving funds, the projections of the revolving funds, which we're not going to discuss at all tonight, but that's one of the, we just need more discussion on it for me to understand and other members to understand those funds, projected revenues for fiscal year '23, and the cultural center. Supposedly there was a plan that's going to be delivered to us and to the town on the uses of the cultural center, and so we'll wait till we hear from them. So I understand what you're getting at, Angela, and we'll get our answers from that, yeah.
There's also, I thought, that the town administrator also wanted to hire somebody to
Yes.
work on the cultural center. Why would we do that if we're turning it into a pickleball center? Or they're not doing the whole project, they're doing little pieces of it.
Well, it's a total recreation design for the cultural center. I mean, there's multiple groups that use it right now, other than pickleballs. I mean, there's a youth soccer program in there. There's the Charter Lighthouse School uses it. There's other groups that use that group, but we'll get answers. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people in town looking for questions and answers on that. So moving on off of CPC articles, and if someone else has another question, is discussion on the FY23 budget. We had a very good discussion last Thursday with Carol, I thought. I thought she did an excellent job going down, budget by budget, explaining a lot of the questions I had and the members who were present, explaining their answers. And we whittled down our initial request for people to come in and speak to us from 11 down to 7. And we've met with Michael McCaskill, chair of the select board, or whatever, select board, I guess, and Joe. And we've decided to have department head meetings. Those department head meetings will start this Thursday night. Joe has delivered me a list of department heads that he's called in, plus the ones that I asked for us to call in. And the ones I asked to call in came from everybody in this group here, sent me notes on who they'd like to see. So that meeting Thursday night, and that's the note I sent you all today about 4 o'clock or so today. I just received it about 3 o'clock. So I'll just run down the list so that the folks out in the audience will know what we're discussing. And this is on the agendas, so it's all published information. But administration's coming in. Joe will be there, of course. And that's where we can ask the question, Angelo, about his 2 hires he has in his budgets. And we got to get clarification on the housing advocate and this $50,000 from CPC. Cape Cod Tech is coming in. As we all know, their budget is up over $500,000 this year, and it's mainly because of the increase in headcount at the school. The tech school's budget is up $543,000, and it's mainly because there's 20 additional Harwich students going to that. And the formula is based on student enrollment as far as education, operating costs and capital costs. So it's pretty simple is what the cost is. Community center's coming in. Conservation group is coming in. The Finance Division, which includes assessing, treasurer, and collector, are coming in. Harbor coming in. The Health Department, that was one of the departments we'd asked to come in. And Police Department. And the Health Department, they were one of the departments that have there were 4 departments, each one requesting a new head. 3 of them are brand new heads. One of them is a head that was converted in 2022 from part-time to full-time, and it was just, that was one of that's for the Health Department. And it was just asking why they were increasing the head count. I think I'll let the department head speak as to why. I think we can figure it out, but they're coming in. And that, because a full-time head also, benefits follow that person. And that benefit package is roughly $23,000 per head. So it's an important number to compute when we figure total costs of a full-time head. And they're coming in Thursday to speak to that, and we can ask the questions that you asked earlier, Angelo. And then the following week, I haven't got a schedule there on that, but the important one there for us, along with the other 2 heads, probably coming in then, the Council on Aging and Health Advocate. What was the other?
Housing advocate?
The what?
Safety, housing advocate?
That was in the administration. They'll be here Thursday. No, the other full-time head was.
Oh, full-time head.
Oh, Council on Aging, Health.
Council on Aging,
Yeah.
Program specialist.
Yeah, it's a full-time head, but there was a 4th. Health has the part-time.
Health Department,
Oh, council on, you already said council on aging.
It's the 4th head. It's,
council, the housing advocate, and
the Cultural Center Director.
cultural center.
That's 3.
Well, I counted that.
So it's-
Housing Director of Cultural Affairs. That's it.
Health Department.
Health Department. That's the
Who's your 4? Housing, cultural, council on aging, and health.
Council on Aging, Health. What was that for? What was that again?
Housing,
Yeah,
cultural center,
yeah.
um,
Health and
Health.
Council on Aging. Okay, there we go. So the 4-time heads coming in, and Monomoy School System. That's the big budget there. They're up $2 million, and their increase over last year was Monomoy. Their increase is $679,000, and so there's questions on that.
Do we have updated documents from them?
I placed the call today. The latest one I have was the one you folks have there. And then we can also speak to them about, in the warrant articles, which we'll get to, is this new funding formula too. And I don't know who the other departments are for the 17th of March, but I'm sure the administration will get to me when I
John, I have a quick question.
Yep.
Say like, for example, cut the budget of the Monomoy Regional Schools by $600,000. Then at the town meeting, and in Chatham, they both approve the new funding formula. Would that $600,000 go back to the schools?
That's a good question. Save it for for the Monomoy school system, but yes, yeah.
Well, I think more of the selectmen, right, than the.
Well, it is clearly, it's the selectmen's budget, yes. I just want to make that, it's definitely the selectmen's budget. And whatever direction they'd like to go in, we just operate off that. But I'm not quite sure. What we're operating on right now is the old funding formula.
You're not gonna get it.
And it's up at $600,000, because there is a question on the timing issue. If we do approve the new funding for the school system, which I don't see why we wouldn't, Chatham has to approve it, and then if they approve it, it's fine. But if they don't approve it, then that's where the issue of what's next after that. I think what's after that is we would operate under the old funding formula.
Like do a month to month.
Yeah, what they call a 1/12 budget, yeah. But we can clarify that on the 17th as to what the steps are there, Mark. And,
John.
yeah,
So I'd also like to add that when in the process of considering this entire budget package, it's important to look at the revenue numbers that have been projected. 13 of 16 departments are projected to be below last year's revenue numbers. And yet we're looking at a summer where all the rentals are already sold out, where, for example, on the Harbor Master, mooring rates have been increased by $75,000. So there'll be an additional $75,000 in revenue flowing to the Harbor Master's department. I would simply suggest when you contextually view the entire budget and you look at revenue and expenses, you consider the revenue projections that are presently in this budget plan, because I find them to be very conservative. I think more realistically, despite what the finance director said at our meeting, I think more realistically it would be appropriate for us to consider the numbers from fiscal '21 as a baseline for actuals, rather than the fiscal '22s, which were pandemic year numbers, terrible numbers.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I don't want to get into a big discussion on that tonight, but thanks.
It's not a big discussion,
I
it's a
know.
short discussion.
Yeah, but I want to get it in front of the selectmen.
And I agree, but I
Yeah.
think in contextually, be properly prepared for this meeting, it's
Oh, yeah.
appropriate for
Yeah.
us to review all of it.
Yep, I agree, 100%.
Just not expenses.
No.
Look at revenue.
Yeah, and it's a big discussion, and we'll do that with the selectman and administrator and budget
No
director present. Moving on from the budget, what the hell did I do with my? There we go. Next one is town warrants. I hope someone have the drafts with you, the warrants of the drafts. Not going to go through a lot of too much of a discussion right now. For one thing, they are just draft budgets. I meant, Karen, do you have anything on the budgets that you'd like to talk or bring up? Or anyone else in the audience? Okay, sensing none, I'll move on. Warrant articles, they are draft, especially draft. And usually when we get warrant articles, there's usually monies included in there. There's no monies included in the draft, hence the name draft. And there's no funding sources yet identified, which is an important key to some of these things. And we'll do that when we go down through them. And again, this information is on is a packet of information on our website that folks could open, download, and take a look at. What I'd like to do is just go down them, just to read them, so folks in the audience can hear where we are as far as draft warrants. But again, there's no numbers attached to them, and there's no funding
They're
sources.
just placeholders.
Just placeholders, yes. It's just to give us an idea of where we're going, the direction we're going in. And then I have some commentary on each one, some little teeny piece of commentary. And then I'll open it up for discussion. Or if someone has an immediate discussion on a budget that I'm talking about, just ask and I'll see what we can do. The first one is just elective offices, the salaries for them. Second one is the town operating number. The third one is the Monomoy Regional School System budget. And I've starred them on my paper that they're coming in to speak to us, so we'll understand on that. Cape Cod Regional Tech, they're coming in this Thursday, and it's basically to address the 20 new heads. Water Department budget, Wastewater Department budget, adopt a capital plan. December 14th, this is important. December 14th, as I've spoken to you folks, we have a joint meeting with the selectmen.
March the 14th.
March 14th. March 14th with the selectmen. I believe that's at 6 o'clock or 6:30.
We're at 6, they're at 6:30.
6:30? Okay.
The budget, that's what the agendas say.
Okay. With the selectmen for a capital outlay presentation on FY23 budget and the 5-year plan for the capital budget. And they're coming in on Monday, the 14th, to present that capital outlay, along with Joe. He's the one that helped, definitely main person put together, and Rich Larios. My tongue is dry here. Richard Larios to present the budget to FinCom, of which Brian and I are a member. Annual department revolving funds discussion. We have to approve every year what each there's about maybe a dozen revolving funds with limits that we have to approve every year, fund prior year's unpaid bills, promote the town of Harwich. This is the Chamber of Commerce stipend that we give them, which I think is usually around 30,000.
50 grand.
50, I think it's 30, 50 grand. I think it
50.
was 30, anyway. Annual allocation of the Mass Cultural Council grant. Herring fisheries, this is Mark's favorite one. Change the name of the selectmen to select board. Disposal of unclaimed properties. Adopting local tax property exemption. This is something that comes up, I think, periodically. I'm not sure if it's something that has to be requested every year or something, but this is something the assessing department has out there. They have a number of exemptions that people can apply for to help ease their tax burden, property tax burden. And this one in particular is for service personnel. If they're serving under, I believe, active duty, that they may grant real and personal property abatement of 100% while they're on that active duty list. Housing advocate, again, this is March 10th. This is this Thursday. Joe Powers, town administrator, will speak to the position he's advocating for and how this affects the $50,000 CPC is also funding. Director of Cultural Affairs, that's coming in on March 10th. That needs more info. Amend the agreement between the town of Chatham and Harwich with respect to the formulation of the regional school district. That's a big topic, and I'm sure the Monomoy school system, when they come in on the 17th, will address that. Harwich water dependent structures. Harwich wetlands protection bylaw. Last night I was in the selectmen's meeting along with Mark. We were and there was much discussion on this particular topic last night. I didn't quite know what it was going into the meeting, but I definitely knew what it was going out of the meeting. And the selectmen had made no decisions last night. They're going to look at it further, but it's a big topic of discussion. A lot of people in attendance in the meeting to speak for and against it. Dispositions of properties to fund parcels unknown. Azalea Drive Bridge Assessment. Don't quite know. I think there's a bridge somewhere over on Headwaters Drive or something that needs a bridge replaced or something. We'll get that more information. Purpose of obtaining a secure and public way to further act on it, to replace a bridge there. Acquisition of land parcels for highway purposes. Water Department fiscal year 23 water main design. We'll probably hear more of that when Dan comes into the department head meetings. Cemetery rules and regulations. Robin's coming in on Thursday to talk about that. And we're also having her come in. If we get our questions answered on Thursday night, maybe we won't have her come in the following Tuesday. And then the only other ones left on that is 6 citizens initiative petitions. Every citizen in the town of Harwich has a right to petition the selectmen for a purpose or a cause, and 6 citizens have elected to do that. This year, all you need in a town meeting is 10 signatures of registered voters, and if the article passes town council approval, it gets on it. There's been 6 that have been petitioned this year. I'll read the 6, and then legal has also provided us with their opinion on the 6, which I've sent out to the boards here on those opinions. Don't want to get too much in discussion on it, but I'll just briefly surmise what legal said on them. One is governing the disbursement of school choice funds. This is a private petition by a Daniel Baker, and I think he's looking, well, I think it's right here. I'll read it. I'm not going to read them all, but this one's a short one. To amend the Massachusetts general laws governing the disposal of school choice funds to include accredited homeschool participants and accredited private schools. This is something I can bring Mr. Baker in to talk to us about if we'd like. I think it looks like he's looking for some type of credit if you homeschool your children or send your child to a private school. And So that's what that is. I'll read maybe I'll read the legal opinion on that one, since we're right there. The legal opinion was, from town council, was instruct the Board of Selectmen to petition the state legislature to amend the bylaws governing school choice funds. And the article uses the term instruct. Legal's opinion, in my opinion, the article constitutes a non-binding directive to the selectmen. So, so that's what we can follow up on that as things progress. And but right now, it's really a non-binding recommendation from town council. Second one is defray the expenses of the Chase Library and Harwich Port Library. We do have a board member whose wife, is she president again this year, Dan? So.
Oh, she'll be president for life.
This is an annual stipend that the town gives these two libraries to fund. These are private libraries, but it's a stipend that the town, for as long as I've been on this board, 6 years, has been giving the town. It's to help fund their operations. They're both very good additions to the town, and you should get out and see them if you haven't. The next one, legal's opinion on that was just mostly on wording as to raise and appropriate and stuff like that. Yeah, so they're figuring that one out. I'm sure they'll figure it out. Next one is prohibit hunting in the Bell's Neck Conservation Area. Do not know too much about this one, other than there's a private petition by a Carol Kutcher Stone that she wants to prohibit hunting in the Bell's Neck area. I guess that they had a town hearing or something on it, and it was a very well-attended hearing by both sides. And legal's opinion is it falls into a very, very gray area because a lot of it involves wetlands, which are both state and federal, and we'll see how that one plays itself out. Both of the next two, the first one is to protect the West Harwich School with a historical restriction. It needs more discussion. Legal gave their opinion that they need to look at it a little bit more, and there's a lot of town general laws stated, so we need to look at that one a little bit more. Same way of selling the West Harwich School with a provision that it's a historical structure and must be includes to donate the surplus property to a nonprofit willing to rehabilitate the historical exterior of the building. More discussion on that. And the last
May I ask
CPC.
you a question about
Sure.
that? How old is that school?
How old is the school?
When did it start?
I'm guessing, I think it was like the first or second elementary school, maybe 150 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's close to 150 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's been talked about quite a bit by the selectmen and different nonprofits.
Well, the other question I have is who of importance stayed there to make it historic, other than the age piece?
I don't have the answer.
George Washington go there? I mean, what?
No,
No.
he's dead.
No.
Because I think they are calling it historical. It isn't. It's an old school.
Yeah.
There are still a lot of residents who went to school there.
So what? I went to a lot of schools too, so did you. I mean,
Yeah, I know what you're getting at, yeah. I don't think there's been any historical designation there, because if there was, I'm sure there would have been some type of bylaw passed on demolishing of it. And, this is an ongoing subject. It's been brought up year after year. I do not know where the selectmen sit on this. I'm sure they'll come to some resolution. We'll see what the selectmen have to say. Again, it's a private petition. The last article was, I'll read the title of the article, Study Best Use Options for Former Harwich Middle School, including recommendations for financial self-sufficiency. And this pertains to the cultural center and as to what to do with that. Again, this was done by a private petition by Richard Gunderson. And in the legal opinion on this, I'll read the entirety because this one is about one sentence. And appropriation, and the article in the draft article didn't have a spelling of, didn't spell out a dollar amount. But in the legal opinion, there is a dollar amount mentioned, and I'll just read it because it's mentioned there. Appropriation of $75,000 to study best used options for the former middle school. This article is approved to form. And that's legal's opinion. So the article met whatever it had to meet to appear on the town warrant. And this particular discussion point, like the forecasted revenue funds, are two topics that we need much more discussion on with the selectmen and town administrator. So we'll just be starting those discussions Thursday night. Those are the warrants. Anyone have any questions here? And Karen, do you have any question on the warrant articles? Sensing no Karen.
Excuse me, John?
Yep.
I read copies of that on the selectmen's packet. Is it on our, the warrants, is that the only place where to get it, is on the selectmen's agenda packet?
No, it's in our agenda package.
It's in our agenda.
Yeah,
sorry.
both the
Right.
draft warrants are in our agenda package
great.
and the legal opinion.
Yep.
They're there. Okay. And I sent them out.
Sorry, John.
Yes, Karen?
No, I was gonna say they're pretty self-explanatory at this point.
Yep. I just want folks to start, educating themselves on these warrants, because when the time comes, when they do get filled out with monies attached and funding sources attached, I'd like to vote on them as quickly as possible, because we only have about 3 weeks to do all this approving on and get written recommendations to the Board of Selectmen by March 31st. So that's the intent of the warrant articles. It'll probably be a perennial article going forward, just in case I hear of anything from the selectmen that we can put on there, or the town administrator that we can vote for. Okay, on the last article, town warrants. Okay. Discussion on joint meeting, we've already discussed a joint meeting with the Selectmen Finance Committee to hear capital outlay, budget presentation on the capital fiscal year 23 and 5-year capital plan. That's March 14th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. in the Griffin Room next door. And I believe that's right on the agenda, first one on the agenda. So they'll be presented, and then the selectmen will move on to their other agenda items that night. But that's this coming Monday night, and
Should be a quick in and out.
yeah, and that's about it. Let me just look through here. Nope, the schedule of the joint meeting with selectmen on March 10th, this Thursday. We're meeting on the 10th. The schedule, it's what I sent out to you this afternoon, the schedule of committees coming in to speak to us. That was brand new today, it's this afternoon.
6 p.m. or 6:30? I have 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
6 p.m., yeah, that's the selectmen's time. And
Selectmen are at 6:30 according to the list.
Thursday, 6 p.m.
Thursday, 6 p.m.?
That's what it says,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. I'll double check that for folks and get back. I could look it up,
On
but,
the 10th,
yeah,
it's posted for 6
Six.
p.m.
6
Yep,
p.m.,
at
okay,
6:30.
thank
Wait,
you.
wait, hold on.
Posted for 6 and 6:30 for the Board of Selectmen.
There are two listings, there's one for 6 and one for 6:30. Give me a minute. Just keep talking and I'll come back.
Okay, I posted my agenda before the
6
selectmen
o'clock.
posted it.
not
They
6
just posted theirs today, I believe.
6:30.
It says 6:30.
So I posted mine for 6:30.
You posted yours for
For
6.
6 o'clock.
Oh, which one is it?
The one we have for a while it was 6 o'clock, and it's the one you did.
Correct.
Okay, well, I'll get back to you with the clarification, whether it's 6 or 6:30.
In there, right?
It'll be in the Griffin Room, and we'll follow the selectmen's recommendation on time. With that, if I can get if nobody else has anything else, Karen, do you have anything, or anybody else on the call?
No, I do not.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
I move to adjourn.
Yeah, make a second on that? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Brian? To adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. Mark? Kelly?
Aye.
Dan, Dale, everybody's adjourned, I am an aye. Okay, the meeting is official over, and I do want to say, the meeting has ended, there'll be no further discussion will take place at all tonight. Thank you all for attending.